Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Rude Awakening. And tonight we'll continue with the secret of the obvious questions that I've been sent by you over the last month. The next first question is a very similar question to a prior one, with slightly different spins, so I'll answer this one. So this person has been doing A Course in Miracles for a couple of years and is now asking me the following question. Doesn't tell me where she's from or where she lives, but doesn't matter. Um, Now that I've done A Course in Miracles a few times, I want to become a full-time teacher of A Course in Miracles. She started a YouTube channel, but it's very poorly attended, and she thought there would be more people interested in what she wants to share. And she's asking me for some advice on how to market herself and market her channel. I'm the wrong person to ask that question. I don't believe in marketing. Um, Understanding the path to life. By all means, if anyone asks you a question, specifically because you're living your life in a certain way and they want to know how you've attained a certain state of inner peace, by all means, you can guide them. But the minute you want to now become a teacher and you think you're going to make a living from it, then you've got to really ask yourself a question. Why do you feel the need to teach others what you've wanted to know? Um, you make the assumption that everybody else wants to study non-duality or A Course in Miracles. And as I've said prior, in several times, I've said everything you do for yourself is always for your little self, or it comes from your true self. If you think that you're here to help others, then you fail to understand what non-duality really means. And it really means there are no others. You're appearing to see fractured parts of yourself as others, fractured parts of your dreaming mind as others. Your true self isn't fractured. It's never been fractured. So again, are you looking for gratitude? Are you looking for gratification? Are you looking for validation? You won't find any as a teacher. And if you do, it'll be false gratification. There'll be some form of false putting you on a pedestal. Um, Remember, gratitude is always towards a brother and to your divine holy self. And it's the holy self in your brother that you're grateful to. Never put any teacher on a pedestal, especially not this one. Remember that if you think you're going to help others, that they need help, you're in essence attacking them because you're seeing them as unhealed. You're seeing them not as we collectively are, which is the Holy Son of God, fully healed, never changed. You've never been anything but healed. You've never been anything but the loving extension of being, the loving extension of God's being. And although you find yourself in this dream and you've once upon a time identified yourself as a body mind character, if you're seeing others as body mind characters that need to be healed, then you haven't realized healing is only for self. And all you need to do is allow yourself to be healed, be willing to be healed. Remember, we all deserve what we desire, but it's only what we truly desire that we deserve. If we think people, places, things, and events are going to make us happy, we deserve ourselves because we don't recognize the love we are, the healing we are, the awareness we are, and we're thinking that something else outside us is going to give it to us. Most importantly, even though you think you may be teaching, remember what is really doing the teaching. It's always our holy self, our holy mind. It's either the ego talking through us or it's our holy self talking through and from us, from our true self. You don't actually teach anyone. You're just remembering self. And if you're still unsure about that, go and look at chapter 18, text chapter 18, the passing of the dream, specifically the section 18.3, the light in the dream. And there's a part in there that says, just bring it up here for a second. Um, the holiness of your relationship. So everything's a relationship with your brother, is always established in heaven, in pure awareness. Heaven is awareness. You do not understand what you've accepted, but remember that your understanding is not necessary, and therefore no one else's understanding is necessary. If that was the case, only intellectuals would get non-duality. All that was necessary was merely the wish or the will to understand. That wish or that will was the desire to be holy, to be as you are, to be the present moment awareness you are, to be the awareness you are. The will of God is granted you, for you desire the only thing you ever had or ever were. And what do you desire? You desire to knowingly be the light you are. And then it says, different section, it says, we are made whole in our desire to make whole. That's our desire to, we think we're going to fix others. But let not time worry you, for all the fear that you and your brother experience is really past. Time has been readjusted to help us do together what your separate pasts would hinder. You have gone past fear, for no two minds can join in the desire for love without love's joining them. Not one light in heaven but goes with you. Not one ray that shines forever in the mind of God but shines on you. Heaven is joined with you in your advance to heaven. Awareness is joined with you. You are awareness in your advance to awareness. When such great lights have joined with you, give the little spark of your desire the power of God Himself. Can you still remain in darkness? You are coming home together with what? With all your fractured selves, with all your brothers. After a long and meaningless journey that you undertook apart and that led nowhere, you have found your brother, and you will light each other's way. And from this light will the great rays extend back into darkness and forward unto God. Just the extension of God, extension of the extension. That's it. From God to God. To shine away the past and so make room for His eternal presence, in which everything is radiant in the light. And ultimately, it's all from God to God. That's it. It's, the sun is the extension of God, and we are fractured manifestations, not extensions, fractured manifestations of our dreaming mind. When the Holy Spirit flows through our fractures, we return to being the extension, the light in the dream, the extension of God in the dream. So don't give up your day job and want to become a full-time Course in Miracles teacher. It's not what it's made out to be. It's not a life of bliss. And unless you're natural at teaching, and teaching is something which came natural to you from day dot, be careful to go there, because it requires a certain amount of vigilance, dedication, work, commitment, and people will continually press on you for assistance, for help, for charity, for something or other. Are you really willing to go there? And have you got the wherewithal to do that? You're always teaching, you're always learning, which means you're always remembering self. The minute you think you need to fix others, you've attacked them because you see them as unhealed. And in essence, you're attacking yourself. This world doesn't need another Course in Miracles teacher or another minister, another priest, another whatever, Messiah, guru. The days of gurus, messiahs, and teachers are over. There's only one teacher, and that's the Holy Spirit. Go within. Be an example for others. Teach through example. Go back into your daily life. Do your daily job. Do your daily natural, passionate, talented nature. And do it with the total passion of the Christ. You are. So you want to market your channel? I'm the wrong person. Find a marketing company. But realize God doesn't need marketing. God doesn't need us to be marketing the course. It's like a self-help book. It's meant to be done, you and capital S self. It truly is a capital S self help book. Okay, which completely is done as one, alone, all one. Hope that, perhaps not the quick answer you wanted to hear, but perhaps it will jolt you into reality. And speaking of reality, the next question, dear Lou, what exactly is non-duality? Is a is A Course in Miracles a non-dual teaching? Is it similar to Advaita Vedanta? Similar in some ways, completely different many others. First of all, Advaita Vedanta is a culmination of many a book written over many a century, if not hundreds of centuries, culminating ultimately in the Upanishads. The Advaita Gita, for example, is the highest form of non-dual teaching. A Course in Miracles is more like a workbook, a manual, in essence, teaching non-duality too. Um, the Course does something very unique, which no other non-dual teaching does, and I'll talk about that a little later. Um, so before I answer that question, non-duality versus duality, what is duality? Duality is just uh, the belief in separation, the belief in this universe is real and that something made it, something created it, and there's something outside us doing all of this. So duality is really the appearance of separation. The appearance really started in our dreaming mind when we, the Son of God, fell asleep. We, before we fractured and became we, one Son fell asleep and fractured itself into gazillions of thought forms. And then it reinforces itself, the belief in these thought forms, through each character appearing in the dream. And the minute the character then seems to think, because it's only the dreaming mind thinking through the character, but the minute the character seems to think, I am this, or I am that, and I'm this, and I'm not that, and I'm this one, not that one, and I believe in this and not that, it's now assumed an identity. Identity, the id, the ego, the belief in separation. The instant awareness identifies with the body. So awareness, what we are, the Holy Son of God, pure awareness. In dream state, it's identified with a body, a mind, a thought. There immediately arises a sense in the dreaming mind of a me and others. So as you dream at night, you always localize in your dream as yourself, through which you experience the contents and the activities of your dream as if it was you. And the person in your dream you appear to be is unaware that you are dreaming you up. Same thing. And so the minute you find yourself localized as an I am this in your dream, there's immediately a sense of others and self separated, a here, a there, space, time, object, subject, object, you and other things, people, places, things, and events. A self, you, an individualized self, and you may conceptualize that self as a body with a soul within it. And then there's a world and perhaps even a spirit world beyond that. There's immediately you and other things and other beings. And yet, this division is not inherent in our experience. It's actually superimposed by thought. It's superimposed by thought of separation. And it's always a consequence of belief, which is taught to you from day dot. From the minute you are able to assimilate, become conscious of information, you start getting taught. There's a belief that we've discovered duality in our awakening sequence. We haven't discovered duality. We've just accepted its effects as reality. And then we reinforce those things because we believe in that reality and we reinforce it through theories and ideas and concepts and beliefs. And once those beliefs are established, we refine them, reinforce them. And those beliefs are simply filters of perception. So it's perceptual filters being reinforced, being made solid. Orange tinted glasses become real, and therefore whatever is seen through the orange tinted glasses is believed to be orange. The cause of duality is it's so simple. It's caused by the forgetfulness of what we are, where we are, and why we are appearing as this. And it's always then got to do with the misidentification of the projected form projections, the projection form characters. And so the part of our mind, the dreaming part of our mind, so the part of the self which appears to dream, then buys into this concept and keeps itself trapped in the projection of ideas. Yet the true self, the self we are, the holy self, the holy Son of God, the extension of God, the unlimited love of God we are, which is actually pure. It's always present. It's presence itself. It's formless. It's pure awareness of awareness. As it, as a part of it fell asleep, in other words, dreamt the dream that never happened, it then identified with what it dreamt about. And yet, like you at night when you're dreaming, you're unaware that you're dreaming, yet you believe you're in your dreams. The minute you realize that you are a character in your own dream, you'll wake up and realize you won't take your dream seriously. You'll laugh at it. And so, dream state is the belief in duality. Duality is the belief in dream state as reality. And so, what is dream state but pure forgetfulness? In when you dream at night, every night, you forget that you are lying on your bed, sofa, wherever you seem to be sleeping, because you find yourself in your dream and you take your dreams as serious, whether they be happy dreams or miserable dreams. But there you are, taking your dream quite literally, quite figuratively, and very, very seriously. And in the ancient texts, that's called ignorance. That's called the falsity, and everything you're dreaming of literally becomes a diversion, an obstacle to the recognition of self, and therefore an obstacle to peace. But at some stage, the I am awareness kicks in, where we start to ask the question, what am I? Why am I here? What created me? What am I here to do? What's the meaning of all this? What's the purpose in all of this? And the meaning and purpose become a fundamental necessity, and even though there is no true direct answer to the pure awareness of being, it's that you remove a thorn with a thorn, the teaching of the Buddha. So you need a thorn to remove the thorn because they didn't have needles back in those days, I think. So non-duality isn't really a philosophy, an idea, a concept. It's not a belief. In actual fact, non-duality requires no belief. There's no set book for non-duality. And that's why A Course in Miracles isn't a book about non-duality. It's a book that brings about the awareness of awareness. Therefore, it brings about non-duality, oneness, atonement, at one. So non-duality, unity awareness. In other words, to say non-duality, unity awareness requires no belief. It's not a theology. It's not a philosophy. It's not a point of view. It's not a school of thought, because it requires no thought. Non-duality is simply a direct recognition of our true, shared, indivisible Son of God extension self. That's it. There was never a moment when anything in the entire universe was not that. And I mean everything, not just you and me and the space in between and the tree and the house all of it is contained in that pure, indivisible, undifferentiated lightness of being, pure awareness. So, besides the fact that non-duality means non-two, not two, not the self and others, not God and you and God, not your soul and my soul. No our souls allowed at all. There's no awareness and consciousness. It's just pure awareness appearing temporarily as consciousness, space-time continuum. There's no being and experience. Being doesn't experience. There's just being. There's simply the awareness of awareness itself. Awareness of life, energy, life is all there is. And energy is life, and life is God, and God is all there is. It's the infinite lightness of being, is the nicest way I can say it, hence the title of the next book. There's nothing to be believed, understood. In actual fact, no understanding is required. There's just an inner knowing, and the knowing is not knowledge. And collective knowledge of the world is not what we need to know. The knowing that there is no world and whatever appears as knowledge of the world is actually still irrelevant. You can go to the highest highs and the deepest depths of quantum physics, for example, and even though it seems to be factual in their dream in terms of what the scientists are proving, it's still not true. It's still just matter appearing as something it isn't, and that matter is just pure energy. If you go to the deepest, tiniest part of subatomical particles, quantum particles, you realize it's just energy, just pure energy appearing as particles, but actually there's nothing, no thing. So the mind is constantly seeking to conceptualize and then find conflict with and alternatives and different points of views and argue right, wrong, good, bad. In true unity awareness, non-duality, there's no opposites because there's nothing opposite to exist in and of itself. There's just the self, the infinite lightness of being, our true self. Although it seems we use a story to say part of our mind dreams and part of our mind's awake. It's just a way of explaining the unexplainable for those that need explanations. But you'll get to a point where you realize you can know nothing. There's nothing to know. And I use the word K and then now, knowing. So K nowing, okay nowing. I'm okay knowing. I'm okay knowing. True knowing is always knowing. And what is there to know in the now but the eternal now, the eternal present moment awareness, which is the now? That's it. Our being, our true self, our Christ self, our extension of God's self, our shared self with God can't be divided. There's no division between us and God. There's nowhere where God ends and we begin, or the Son begins. You know, no thought enters into that. And the Course talks about the only thought we share with God is the thought of unconditional love, because we are that thought. We are the thought of unconditional love in God's mind. And we're using mind again. And it's just love, ever extending love, or light, ever extending light. It never became anything else. It never needs to return to being something it was. It's always just itself. It appears to, at some stage, observe itself being not itself. But even that observation is just a story. Because what is there to observe if oneness is all there is? Who's there to observe? The self is ever present. You know, the characters seem to not be present and then realize the presence of the ever present presence. But these are just stories we tell ourselves. You know, it's a cat and a mouse chasing each other. In actual fact, there's no cat and mouse. That's all it is. Is you know the thief. This Ramana's teachings. The thief posing as a policeman trying to find the thief. You know, um, all characters appear in the spaceless place of consciousness, and consciousness is just temporal, fallen asleep awareness. My words. Once that dreaming mind awakens to itself, consciousness, space-time, matter, continuum dissolves, and all there is left is what's always been, present moment awareness. Presence is awareness, the essence of being. And now I'm starting to sound all mystical, and it's just silent stillness. And so everything appears, everything that appears and disappears in consciousness is just misperceptions of awareness. Yet awareness can't misperceive itself. So what? What are we talking about? Exactly. We're not talking about anything. He can't actually talk about it, can't discuss it, can't argue with it. And if you make a comment saying, I disagree, I want to explain it that way, then you haven't understood the awareness of awareness. And because at best, symbols twice removed, these are concessions at best to absolute reality, which we cannot fully grasp or explain while we're appearing as temporal fractured beings. You know, um, all there is that sense of I. Now, is it the I that am this and am not that, or is it just the I and silent stillness? You know, and at some stages you start becoming aware, you finally become aware that the thoughts you're having aren't your thoughts. And actually you're not having them. They're just being broadcast by them. You're hearing them. And once upon a time you mistook them for your thoughts. Now you realize they are not my thoughts. The only real thought I have is the thought I have with God, and that is a silent, still, quiet, forever, loving unity awareness. It's not even a thought, it's just the awareness. And that's it. And then at some stage you have to inquire, to whom do these thoughts appear? And when you look for to the whom the thoughts appear and where do they come from, you don't find a source of the thoughts, and they're not appearing to anyone. They just appear. And when you no longer identify with the thoughts, you no longer identify with the identifier of thoughts. And the minute there's no identifier of thoughts, no source of the thoughts, no one to whom the thoughts appear, then there's what? Just pure awareness. And what happens to the thoughts? They fade to gray. They just dissolve in the light of the awareness you are. It was Krishna Menon that said, duality exists only when attention is turned outwards. Um, Inwardly, there's only the indivisible awareness. but there's no inward and there's no outward. Again, concessions. I'm not arguing with him. I'm not disagreeing with him. But when you ultimately look at it, you realize, but I'm not focusing outwardly. I'm not focusing inwardly to my thoughts or the appearance of the world. I just seem to be. And so if there's no outward and there's no inward, what is there? There's just the lightness of being, awareness of awareness, rest in God. I hope that answers your question in a rather roundabout way. And this question, next question, question three, leads on from this. And the question is, dear Lou, will I find liberation and enlightenment if I study non-duality and if I study A Course in Miracles? And which one should I study? As if there's something called non-duality and there's something called A Course in Miracles. Not A Course in Miracles is a non-dual curriculum in essence. And there's many a non-dual teachings, Advaita Vedanta, Upanishads, Book of the Dead, teachings of Thomas Aquinas, Meister Eckhart's teachings, Tao Te Ching. You'll find, it'll find you. And the question really is, will you find liberation if you get onto a non-dual path? And the answer is simple, yes and no. So yes, non-dual teachings. Let's go back to the thorn. You got a thorn in your foot, and so what do? You find another thorn nearby, and you use that thorn to pull out the thorn in your foot. That's it, you know. Um, but at some stage, you need to put down the thorn you used to pull the thorn out of your foot. Once the thorn is out of your foot, you no longer need the thorns. So, sometimes the studying of mystical teachings in and of itself becomes the trap because it just creates further confusion. And I saw a question in one of the course communities this week, and should you study only A Course in Miracles or should you study several, and could they perhaps conflict? Well, they will to a novice because you realize one says consciousness, the other one says awareness. Meanwhile, they're both trying to say the same thing. Some use them synonymously, where I use them very distinctly. Some will seem to trap you in verbiage, and very often the Hindu Advaita Vedanta teachings, which often use Hindu words because there aren't exact same words to be used in English, will then just confuse you, and then you become one of those walking, talking, guru-sounding characters that talk foreign to me and Advaita Vedanta and sounds so sexy and so spiritual, and the ego just loves spiritualization of itself. And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole and you're dressing like a monk, wearing sandals and shaving your head and chanting whatever, and you become a vegan. And now you think you're spiritual and enlightened and no more than others. It just trapped you in spiritual identity. Um, you have no need for that. If you haven't started studying A Course in Miracles, I urge you not to. And do yourself a favor. There's a much better way than going the path I've gone, which is I spent 30 years studying, reading more books than I can count. I have a library full of books, and yeah, and it just took me like the Urumbus, the snake that swallows his own tail. I was just swallowing my own tail, and eventually I realized I was just on a loopy loop, and then the silence came. Now, the silence didn't come because I read all the books. The silence came because of my exasperation with they were all pointing to the exact same understanding, and the understanding was be still. And I was resisting the being still. And eventually, when I surrendered to the stillness within and just became still, I knew I am. Be still and know I am God, the extension of God. So, there's only one true path, and we always say that path is inward, but what it really means is center. The inward path is just a centering path. Return to silent stillness, rest in God, rest as awareness. That's what it means, is just rest. And watch the thoughts come and go and pay no attention to them. But you can look for the source of them. You won't find it. Look as to whom they're appearing to, and you're going to say me. But there is no me. There's just me observing the thoughts. Because if there's a me, then where do they come from if they're in my head? And then we want to mystify it and say someone's talking to us. It's an angel, or it's a Jesus, or it's a guru, or it's a guide, or it's a something, you know, um, an American Indian spirit guide. We love that idea. But it's remember, it's only either your dreaming mind talking to its fractured selves, or it's your right mind calling the fractures to awaken to self. That's the only conversation there is. God has never uttered a single word. And Jesus, who died 2,000 years ago, when he dissolved, in other words, ascended into right mindedness, no more Jesus, there's no more Jesus voice talking to us. Although you may superimpose that, filter it, and think Jesus is talking to you, but it's just Christ mind. And what is Christ mind? Your own mind, our own indivisible extension, loving source, God mind. That's it. There's nothing else. Everything else is just a wonderful story we tell adult children who haven't grown up and still need a Santa Claus figure with Jesus sandals and a long beard. When you recognize there's no one to help you except the memory of God within you, Holy Spirit, well, then center within and listen to the voice within what? The awareness you are. It's not you have awareness, you are awareness. All that's required to realize self is to be still and rest as the self, rest as awareness, rest in God. What can be easier than being still? Why do you want to go down a rabbit hole? Why do you want to go and listen to dialogues? Why do you want to go and listen to concepts? It's just going to confuse you. You do more for yourself and the healing of the world which you dreaming up by resting as awareness. There's nothing to change. And by the way, you could be angry and you're still awareness. You could be happy and you're still awareness. You could be sad and still be aware that you still the awareness. There's just sadness appearing, anger appearing. You could lose your shit, rage, rave, get angry, shout, scream, punch someone in the nose. It's still just awareness. And once you recognize the awareness is there, once you've done your little play acting, you return to it, realizing you've always been that, and it's always been there, even though you seem to be jumping up and down, screaming at the world. The minute you get into a concept, belief, sides, taking a side, identify with a nation, with the right, with the wrong, this one's doing that. We should, the best thing you can do for yourself is not get involved with anything other than what's right in front of you. If you see an atrocity and there's something wrong in front of you, act. Cruelty being done to a child, an animal, woman, elderly, helpless people, you jump in and you help. You don't take a side. You just, hey, not under my watch. I'm not going to let this happen. Yeah, you're going to play out whatever you guys want to play out, but I don't want to see anybody being harmed. So if I have to protect others, then I'll do so. If I have to step in and feed someone, help someone, I do so. But it doesn't mean you put up with people that take advantage of you. You help, but the minute they try and take advantage of you, hurt you, steal from you, you put your hand up. Deception is not allowed in awareness, not from yourself to yourself, and not from your fractured selves to each other or to what appears you. No thanks. That's really what the holy jihad is. The holy jihad is a holy war of saying, I and my Father are one. And the sovereignty of I and my Father will not be disturbed by thoughts appearing as form. No thanks. Doesn't mean I'm going to go out and hurt anyone, but in the same way, I'm not going to let the world, fractured parts of myself, be harmed by other fractured parts of myself, which are trapped, steeped in such darkness, they actually appear as evil. There is no evil, there's just the appearance thereof. There is no sin, there's just the appearance of sin. You know, remember, every belief is a thought, comes from a thought, a concept, an idea, a perception, a projection. And these concepts, the world is either appearing as very subtle or very specific. All that's required to be aware of self is to realize that either whether the thoughts are specific, subject, object, or very subtle, they're phenomena appearing in the dreaming mind, and neither are real. So the inward world isn't real, and the outer world isn't real. Neither are real. And so no belief is real, no concept is real, no idea is real. Because in awareness, there's no thought, and therefore no idea, no concept, no belief. So be careful of believing the subtle inner world is real, but the outer isn't. They both as unreal. Pure awareness has no world, has no bodies, has no people, has no activities, things, events. It's just the awareness of awareness. Outer, inner are both projections of a dreaming mind. A dream within a dream within a dream, mind within mind, and then capital W, holy mind, the mind of God. So the minute you get trapped in engaging with outer phenomena or inner phenomena, you think the inner phenomena, the mystical experience, the spiritual insight, the voice in your head, the wonderful saying the guru said, you think that you're regurgitating, or the mantra you keep repeating, you think that's real. You're trapped. No mantras needed. Abide. Rest in God. All suffering is a dance of externalized, specific attention, or internalized, very subtle attention. True awareness requires zero attention. There's just the knowing of present moment. Ego is just simply a belief in identity with body mind. And the idea with the body mind means I am this, me, and you, and them. There's none of that. Yet while you appear to be a you use that appearance and you dedicate that appearance to the memory for God, Holy Spirit. Then uses that memory for God, uses that identity to remind you, the dreamer, not you, the character, but through you, the character, Holy Spirit, the memory for God, reminds the real you, the dreamer, that which appears to observe the dream for a while, of what it really is and where it really is, and the fact that it's never left that which it is, and that which it is the kingdom, the eternal extension of the love of God. And then through the permanent and continuous practice of self-inquiry, to whom does this appear? These thoughts are not my own. I could see peace instead of this. God is the love and the light with which I see. And very quickly, these very subtle teachings, these very subtle non-dual Course in Miracles reminders, completely change your inner understanding of what you are understanding. Not that it's needed. And then there's a transformation, a transfiguration of identity, because the identity gets transfigured from what? Body mind identity to spirit knowing. Not an identification with spirit, but a knowing of spirit. What's spirit? Pure energy. Spirit's just pure energy. And what's another word for pure energy? Undifferentiated awareness. And so you're not going to be replacing old thoughts, new beliefs, new concepts. The concepts go. There's no more need. And for a little while, you want to be explaining this, as I am doing right now, and even that's dissolving. And this is the end part of it that's coming to an end. There's no more need to speak or to share or to teach. It's just, it seems to be a pattern and it seems to be happening, but there's no need to do it anymore. There's no more intellectual activity. There's no more searching. All that this now becomes is, it's like the finger pointing at the moon. Don't worship the moon. Don't worship the finger. It's just trying to take your attention away from hand, finger, moon. Two, take your gaze away from the finger, take your gaze away from the moon. You're the space between you and finger, you and moon. You're just that spaceless place, that void that is devoid of nothing, that silent stillness which is not empty but full of the joyous lightness of being, where your mind no longer clings to anything, not the thought and form it projected as you, not the thoughts it projects through you. It's no longer clinging to any identity. It's no longer clinging to any idea. And there's an awareness which seems to arise, yet it's always been there. And there's a unity awareness of our one indivisible shared self. And even that is just a word because it's just presence, the presence of presence, the awareness of awareness. And now we now start to sound all spiritual again. And it really, it's just so simple. And you don't need all of that books and readings and course and communities and listen to seminars and travel halfway across the world to attend listening to Guruji so and so speak and the enlightened one and the foundation of this and the circle of madness. All of that just goes because there's just you, the loving extension of God, being as you are. Liberation is not attained by reading books or doing a course or reading non-duality. There's no attaining required. You already are that. There's no gaining of an identity or a better identity. And the new world is not a new way of looking at it. It's just the present moment awareness of being. You're not gaining anything. You're not attaining anything. You're losing identity. You're letting it all go. You're throwing it beautifully into the silent wind, which is the void within the silence, the wind that drowns, that beautiful loud wind that drowns out the noisy background. And as you lift and spread your wings, and you lift like the falcon up beyond the battlefield, so far up above the earth looks round, and there's clouds in between. You no longer see the battlefield. You no longer hear the cries of something that you got involved in because you didn't know what you were. And yet, at some stage, you realize not only are you beyond that, rising above the battlefield, there is no battlefield, there is no world, there is no universe. There's just the infinite lightness of being, residing, abiding in the infinite lightness of being. The son awakens in his father kingdom and realizes he but traveled in dreams, to a place he never left, through a time which never existed, only to be himself knowingly through the experience of what he was not. And then, of course, the question is going to come up, why did he do this? And we can't answer that question with the same mind that is still appearing to do it. Because the truth and the only answer there is, he never actually did it. He just dreamt he did. And it's actually already over. And that's how we can speak with such conviction about the part of ourself which is already awake to self, talking about fractured parts of ourself that seem to be awakening to self, but no self awakens. There's only one self. And that is already as it's always been and always will be, the infinite lightness of being, the continuous eternal love of God. Long way to answer a short question. Yeah, as a short question, I'm going to answer with a very short answer. Dear Lou, is it wrong to desire happiness? Is it wrong to want a husband, to have children, to have a family, to have a home? Is it wrong? Um, yes, it's wrong to want to be happy. You should desire only to be a miserable git, because that's the way to enlightenment. Lu Jipu discovered enlightenment through being a miserable git, and so it's wrong to want to be happy. Does that answer sit well with you? Of course not. Of course not. Am I a miserable git? Sometimes I want to be. In a boardroom when it suits me. No, happiness is our nature. Happiness is your nature. Your essential nature is pure, unadulterated, joyous lightness of being. That's beyond the word happy. But happiness is your nature. It's not wrong to desire it. What's wrong is seeking it outside you. What's wrong is thinking a husband, a child, a family, a home's going to make you happy. But if your joyous being wants to extend and it calls out through you to meet a companion and drop the word husband, wife, drop it, companion, compañera, a walking home partner, just for now. I mean, of course, you can do whatever you call it, whatever you want. But really, you're looking for a mighty companion, holding each other's hands, symbolic hands, while you walk each other home to the home you've never left. If your happiness wants to express itself as marriage, child, home, whatever, if it calls you then expresses that. But realize the happiness within is wanting to express itself as that. You don't have to give it up and now become a monk or a, God forbid, Course in Miracles full-time teacher. Please do not do that. It's the last thing the world needs. There's enough mad people out there. We don't need to add more to the formula. So express. But be very careful that it's not an emptiness, a loneliness, a thinking that when I have him or her in my life and I have a child, and hey, if you're unhappy, a child's just going to make you more miserable, especially those first 9 months when it screams its fucking head off, you know, apparently. I remember little Tristan screamed her head off for the first 6 months. Yeah. Okay, so if you think those activities are going to make you happy, no. If you think a child's going to save your marriage, no. If you think a husband's going to make you happy in a home and a family, no. But the happiness, oh, you want to express. I used to say that I don't, and I still don't ride a motorcycle to be happy. I didn't go to the racetrack to be happy. When I was happy, I'd go to the racetrack. When I was happy, I'd ride my motorcycle. If I went riding my motorcycle to be happy, which means I was miserable, I would inevitably get into a fight or a road rage incident, and I'd just try and be minding my own business, and there would be an A-type soul appearing out of nowhere, reflecting how I felt about myself within, of course. So, no, nothing wrong desiring to be happy and wanting a family as an expression of the love you are. But be sure you're not doing it because you're unhappy and you hope those things will make you happy. Hope that gives you some clarity in a direction. And then this one, which actually popped up in the last talk, which will be the last question for tonight, is it's around the world, the word nihilism, and to many a first-time Course in Miracles or non-duality student, if you don't have the right support and the right understanding around you, um, A Course in Miracles teachings can somewhat, sometimes, sound like nihilistic teachings. And this person's asking me, says ACIM sounds like nihilism. Would you agree? If everything I see is meaningless and there's no purpose to life, why bother living then? Well, if living is a bother, you're doing it wrong, first and foremost. Ken Wapnick has answered this. So look up Ken Wapnick's question. Just type up Ken Wapnick and nihilism, and he's got some really great teachings there. And whatever I'm going to say is probably going to be repeating him in some way or another, although I often take a very different spin to my dead brother Ken. He is dead. He's not talking to us. He is now one with us. He's no longer a spirit being in the spirit world. He awoke to self and dissolved, and just like Jesus, both of them are now no longer real. And what is real is the essence of them, which was always real, and that's the Christ self, talking to all ourselves. Okay, so, you know, what would I say about nihilism? Well, my only answer to you is this: investigate for yourself, study the Course in Miracles, go into it. And if it makes you sad and depressed, you're doing it wrong. If sex is a pain in the bum, you're doing it wrong. If A Course in Miracles is a pain in the heart, you're doing it wrong. You're perceiving it wrong. That's it. That's it. That is it. Okay. Unless you like pain. Well, then keep doing it. You know, you'll be shown. Ask and you will be shown. And no matter what I say, if I was to explain it to you, if you've already made up your mind, you're not going to agree with me. So what does it matter whether you think or I think or whether someone else thinks it is or isn't nihilism? Investigate. Nihilism is a sad affair. It's the saddest of all affairs. Nietzsche used to speak of nihilism, lectured about it, wrote books about it. I've read a lot of his teachings about nihilism, and geez, in fact, he lived with his mother. No wonder he was nihilistic. But no, A Course in Miracles is not nihilistic at all. At all. Although, yes, I guess why one could see if you haven't fully, truly understood non duality, and maybe A Course in Miracles is the first non dual book you get into, it could at some stage seem like this chair means nothing. Fuck. This apple means nothing. This table means nothing. This body means nothing. Well, then what's the point? The point is to get you to the truth or what's behind the meaningless world that you seem to have given meaning to everything. You've labeled and named everything, named form. You see the form, you do not recognize the content, because if you recognize the content, you'd know yourself. The content is the self. It's always in everything. The content within you is the content within everything, and there's only one content, and that content is the eternal essence, energy, eternal extension of the love of God. That's the content, the real content. The rest, the appearances, are just filters of perceptual filters, preventing you from recognizing the essence, energy of everything. So, Course in Miracles is not nihilism. In fact, I'd say it's the exact opposite of nihilism, where it takes the universality of everything, the union of everything, and that is real. A Course in Miracles clearly distinguishes between true reality, absolute reality, and that which never was. But before I go any further, let's get to the fundamentals of nihilism. What does nihilism say? It's a philosophical viewpoint. And philosophical viewpoints are fuck dangerous. Just go to America or South Africa and you'll realize how philosophy used by certain leaders and certain parties can, on the outside, seem to be so wonderful and doing the right thing and yet be completely counterproductive and completely destructive. So nihilism always leads to some form of destruction. Careful there. So nihilism is often the rejection of everything. The rejection of any religious concept or moral concept or beliefs. It rejects everything, but doesn't offer anything in its place. And there's nothing worse than someone that tells you all their problems, but offers no solution either. They can only find problems within problems, which is the typical makeup of the ego. It only asks questions to find problems, only finds problems to ask questions. And so loopy loop, urumbus, urumburus. And so nothing has meaning at all. What's the point of living? Well, fuck it. Just, what? There is no point of living. But do you just want to go and off yourself? Of course not. Because even that feels wrong. No matter how desperate you are, there's something that wants to continue. And that in itself proves nihilism to yourself, that it isn't true. Nihilism gets rid of all meaning and all hope and all joy. Course in Miracles, on the other hand, restores everything to its true meaning. It brings about the awareness of what is true, therefore denying what is not true, which appeared to be true once upon a time. And it does it through a process, a path called forgiveness. And so we get to a point of forgiving ourselves for believing what was true, now knowing it isn't. And through the neti neti, the negation, and there's where it possibly comes in because it seems to be negation and negating everything. No, it only negates the false, and therefore revealing the truth. When you peel an onion, the more you peel, eventually you get to no thing. And that's what A Course in Miracles does. It makes us recognize that void in the very center of the onion, no thing, is actually the fullness of being, and that it isn't empty, but it is the lightness of being, the joyous lightness of being. You know, um, Nihilism says nothing is real. Course in Miracles says everything can be an echo for reality, echo for the voice of God. And so when handed over, show me another way, the grace of God, God's grace, He's Holy Spirit, the essence energy, which is God, which is the essence energy you are, reminds you of the essence energy, the extension of God's essence energy you are. And so it makes you realize that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, thereby revealing herein lies the peace of God. Herein lies the peace of God. And the peace of God is all I want. The peace of God is all I want to offer. The peace of God is everything I've ever wanted. I want nothing else. And what is the peace of God? It's the eternal spirit, the indivisible spirit, the joyous lightness of being. That, unfortunately, that essence energy, which has always been there, that present moment awareness, that presence always here, while viewed through our nihilistic, egotistical, blame everybody else, denounce everybody else, deny everything else, while being part of that everything else, is how our egoic filters are perceived and then reinforced and kept in place and then played on a loopy loop. And so our essential essence energy seems to be fractured, seems to be real as fractures. Yet when you take those perceptual filters off, oh, it's just the likeness of being, one indivisible self. Nihilism directs you outwards to say none of that stuff is real. There's nothing exists, but pointing outwards at the things that don't exist. Course in Miracles turns you inwards and makes you realize what is true has always been there, and that's the essence of being. And what appears as matter doesn't matter. But the essence of that matter matters indeed because it is the indivisible love we are shared. That what appears is really just fear, guilt, sin disguised as matter. And when that perceptual filter is taken away, fear, guilt, sin, suffering dissolves, and what's left? Infinite lightness of being. And that appearances, Course teaches you appearances do not matter. Nihilism says appearances matter, but they don't matter. They're not real. So it wants to make something real in order to disprove it. Whereas A Course in Miracles says, I'm not trying to disprove it or prove it. Be present in it and see whether it's real or not real for you. What A Course in Miracles does is it says nothing matters but the love or the awareness or the infinite lightness of being you are, the love of God you are. That is the only thing that matters, even though it doesn't appear as matter. Course in Miracles doesn't deny life. It denies what appears and disappears as life forms. But it doesn't deny the essence energy, which seems to animate them, and yet in which they're all contained, which is life itself. Course in Miracles shows you the reality of what real life is, God. And by directing you inwards to the recognition of the life you are, the shared life with God you are, we remember what we are. And then we negate what we're not. I'm not this, I'm not that. I am the awareness which is aware of what I am and what I'm not. So Course in Miracles doesn't deny existence. It denies the appearance of existence, but recognizes the reality of what's never existed. Let me explain that. What exists, or what we call existence, is dream content. God doesn't exist. God is. Self is. The extension of God is. Existence is dream content. When you dream at night, characters exist in your dream. You're not existing while you're dreaming. You are. Use of words. Semiotics, symbols beyond symbols, meanings beyond meanings, concessions. When A Course in Miracles takes you down that rabbit hole, it's a rabbit hole that loops you straight out of the rabbit hole. Nihilism takes you to a rabbit hole and ends in a dark cave, and someone's going to drop a bucket of water in your head. When A Course in Miracles says this world is an illusion, doesn't mean you go around telling everybody the world's an illusion. It's trying to make you recognize what is true, that the world is contained in the essence of reality, but appears as a universe, and that is not real. It doesn't mean you deny it. No, you say it's not real and you jump off a cliff because there's no gravity. The dream content has rules because you made up those rules. You just forgot you made up those rules, and those rules are made up just in case you forget that you made them up, so they can smack you on the head every time you try and disobey the rules in order to make you believe the rules are real and that you are real and that the rules are real. But at some stage you transcend all of that, and that's why the character Jesus 2,000 years ago did the miracles he did. And first and foremost, Course in Miracles miracle is not just performing miracles, healing the sick and the blind and water to wine. The true miracle is the recognition, I and my Father are one. The fact that this is just dream state, and that there's only one I, and that's the extension of God, one shared self, just appears to dream, a dream that never really happened. That's actually already over. And the reason it still appears to be playing is because the Son of God, that we are, the extension of God we are, haven't forgiven ourselves, storylined, for dreaming a dream that's never happened. Unlike nihilism, Course in Miracles is not a philosophy. It doesn't make you further negative. And I don't want to say it gives you hope, because to me, hope is a weak, feeble word. But it reinforces faith, and faith is the process of knowing. True gnosis, true knowledge. And true knowledge is not knowledge of the world, but the knowledge of self. It's not a knowledge of things and events and how things work and science and whatever. It's a knowledge of being. It's being itself knowingly. Course in Miracles brings us to true liberation. The liberation is only of thought, false, erroneous thought. Liberation brings us into the awareness we are. Nihilism just takes you down a rabbit hole of nothingness and leaves you in nothing, with nothing, looking forward to nothing. A course doesn't make you look forward. A course brings you into the present moment where there is no forward, there is no backward. There's just being, the joyful lightness of being, the recognition of I was mistaken. It's true, this has no meaning, it has no purpose, but being is all of it. Being is both purpose and meaning in one indivisible self. Course in Miracles is not just a philosophy, it's an inner pathway, a journey without a distance, closer than close. But it all rests on a fundamental principle, and this is where A Course in Miracles is so completely different to any other non-dual teaching, except for perhaps Ho'oponopono. And that is that A Course in Miracles teaches you about true forgiveness. And true forgiveness isn't, you know, you condoned others and now you forgive them. You condemned others, now you condone them. It's the recognition that this never happened. Nothing really needs to be forgiven. Only I need to forgive myself for believing this was real. And once I realize that this isn't real, there's not even myself to forgive. There's no one to forgive. Forgiving and receiving on one are one and the same thing. Where A Course in Miracles and other non-dual paths share links is the negation, the neti, not this, not that. I could see peace instead of not that. A Course in Miracles really is liberation, salvation, atonement. What does that mean? It's the letting go. You no longer bind yourself to expectations, to beliefs, to judgments, to unrealities, to rank ordering, right, wrong, trying to work out which teacher is better than which teacher. And there's no more judgment. There's no more outward looking. There's no more chasing. There's no more seeking. There's a beingness. There's just a being, an awareness of being, which is actually synonymous words. The words will lose you. You'll lose words. You'll get to the point where you truly know you know nothing because there's nothing to know and there's everything to be. I hope that answers the question, the difference between A Course in Miracles and nihilism. I'm sure it's going to be asked a million more times, but now perhaps you have a way to explain it yourself. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for joining me. Have a most blessed week, and I will see you next week. Take care. No more staying.